So today we're starting with the schedule baseline. Like I mentioned, the schedule baseline basically is the schedule you've agreed with your stakeholders, with the team, your client. This is what we're going to be setting our budget boundary in terms of time. We're going to start this day and we're going to end on this day. So basically, that's what becomes the baseline. So we have the schedule baseline. We also have what we call uh the cost baseline. In fact, basically for everything, you usually hear the word baseline. Baseline means the basis. You know, for engineers, there's something called the basis point. It set the boundaries from where we measure what, measure measure everything. You know, when we say something is 50-meter tall, 50-meter tall, there must be a basis. That is at a starting point where you compare something. If I say you are taller than me, it means you are referencing something. Basically, for you to say I'm taller, that doesn't mean there's a what? There's a reference, reference point. You know, when you talk about height or, especially, you measure against sea level for those doing survey. So that's the baseline from where we measure things. So your schedule baseline is what you prepare from the beginning, our start date, our end date that you agreed. Now, the truth is that as project goes on, you find out that things will change, start date will change, end date will change. So you'll be comparing that to your baseline and measuring things against what? Against that. The percentage completions will be measured against the baseline. And sometimes there might be a need to readjust and once as things change, you adjust your baseline. What I mean by how do you adjust your baseline is basically a project is supposed to be 60 days and the client add another item to it, and that item is going to take extra 20 days. So it doesn't make sense for you to still be judging yourself at the 60 days. You know, the baseline will have shifted. I can't be judging because originally we said 60 days, but that 60 days is based on a particular scope. Now, additional scope has been added. So what do? We reset our baseline, call it basement, the adjustment. You reset, you call it rebasing. So you rebaseline. It could be that something was removed. And if something was removed, automatically I expect you to finish fast. That's the expectation. It might not be so, uh, especially if the activities is something that is running parallel with other activities. It does not, you have to really check your schedule. That's how you check your schedule. Okay, removing or adding, how does it affect things? So you reset your baseline. Those are the things you do in your Microsoft project also. Uh, okay, so what it is, the approved snapshot of your schedule at a specific point in time. It's present the plan everyone committed to. So it helps you to compare your plan versus actual date. Uh, in cost, that's also you are going to be doing. You're going to be comparing your planned budget, your budget, versus the actual spend. You're going to be comparing hours, actual budgeted hours against actual hours spent, and only through the formal change control, not informally adjusted whenever reality diverges from the plan. So you don't change baseline. Once it's agreed, because that's the basis of comparison. Are going to be, you don't shift you don't shift the goalpost. Basically, that's what we are saying here when it comes to schedule baseline. It's set, it's cast in stone, you put it there. It's only when something material change that okay, it has to be changed, and everybody agree that okay, we're not going to be basing. So for example, if you have an additional scope and as I'm working, uh and my percentage is showing like 40% completion, against what, that baseline. Now, if somebody add additional scope, automatically you cannot be at 40% completion, 40 completion again. You understand? I can't be saying you're 40 at 40% completion. So, something changes. And so that's why I have to go and reset the baseline to really recalculate what the percent completion completion is because additional bigger scope has been added. But for things like, okay, we are wasting time, things is not working fine, you don't adjust your baseline for those things. Those are the things that really show you your true position. And we are 50%, we are 60% on cost, but we are still 40% completion. That's how you now begin to see, compare, calculate your schedule, performance index, SPI, and you calculate your cost performance index, the CPI, to check, where you are, your performance with schedule and performance with cost. And if you're going to be able to finish your project on time or at the right budget, we are going to talk about some of these things in the cost. Yeah, definitely it's on the cost. There are examples for that. Tracking and updating the schedule. This is where I said I didn't want to rush last week. A schedule you never update is just a wish list. Regular tracking turns your plan into a living management and tool that reflects reality and guides decisions. So what are the things you update weekly on your schedule, please? Uh, please, which you basically you build your activity. And sorry, I wanted to bring on my Brazil project. It's just not coming up. I don't know why, because it's my person. I don't know. Apologies for that. All I wanted to show us something. Uh, uh let's put one example of it. PDF example. So on a weekly basis, you're going to be um updating your schedule, and there are different ways different project managers and update schedule. And that's why I said last week that uh as you begin to get really hands-on on your Microsoft project software or your Primavera PC software, there are different ways you will do things, and at the end of the day you are going to producing uh communicating the same result depending on how you decide to approach it. There's no one cap fit it all. It's all about how hands-on you are, how you're good you are, what you're doing. So you have a project now. These are activities for a very long project. One of my projects here, and yeah, these just forget it. Just don't worry yourself about those activities. These are just activities. Just assume the activities. So we are basically uh updating. One of the things we're updating is this percentage completion, whether you're 100% start on this schedule. I'm not showing it against what we are just. I'm not showing against the baseline. Uh, I didn't bring up the baseline here. Usually the baseline you'll have seen what the baseline start and the baseline what finish, but you now see what we call the actual start and actual finish. So usually make the schedule cumbersome. So I usually just take that out. You can hide it. If you want to bring it up, it will come. It's not as if it disappears. You just bring it up again. It shows. Basically, this is what the client really wants to see, because this is what is actually happening. And at the end of the day, you are still seeing. You'll be seeing your one of the things that your clients will be looking at every week is this date here, because this shows the overall days of the project, 500 days. You know, it's going to finish. This thing started December 26th and it's going to finish first May of 2027. So this is what your client will be looking at every time. First of all, they will look at this, and they also look at this total percentage completion. This is total overall of everything. They are looking at, okay, we are making progress, and they are going to go to the activities. You know, uh, Primavera P6 is a more interesting one. And it looks scary sometimes when you first look at it, but the truth is that it's interesting. It's not difficult. Uh, so it's gonna show you the reporting week and stuff like that. And of course, that also does on Microsoft. This line here will show you something, maybe the reporting the reporting week. That's where we start a reporting week. We draw the project line to show the reporting week, and the client will go see, okay, where we are right now. They look at, because you'll be updating this, and where we are completion. This thing we are saying 6 days. You start, and you're going to be updating when you start. You change it if this is started January 15. You eventually it will update itself, because okay, I'm not showing my predecessor here. As you're going to be adjusting a couple of things. Basically, what you come here most of the time is the party completion. And if you have said this thing is going to be March 1, March 17, and the date is now March 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 19. Of course, we're not finishing March. So basically, that date you have to move that what that date to show when the new completion date is going to be. Automatically, it depends if the activity is on the critical part. Definitely it will affect this particular data. If not, it won't affect it, and that's why schedule is really important. Once you shift something from what you have said, it automatically affects the whole end of the project. It will move a lot of things around depending on how you have sequence. All of these linking is what we call sequencing. You have linked them up, so when you adjust one, it affect every other thing that is connected to it, and automatically, if it's on a critical part, it's going to affect this date. So this is what you update every time. Or we are still working on this. Or yesterday it was 20, and it's not something you do uh on daily basis. You don't update. Usually update most time maybe on weekly basis. For small project, for bigger project could be on a monthly basis. For very 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 big project, and of course for those ones, a lot of other small schedule will be available in terms of other people are working on something that, and they will have built their own schedule that they will be reporting to you, and based on what you receive from their weekly basis, you can now update your own schedule. So basically, that's what you come to do. You are basing your percent completion. You are checking your end date. You are checking your start date. This usually you don't alter the start date, because what happens is that the activity that is linked to it, once you update that to when it completes 100%, it automatically affect the start date of the activity. Next activity you are moving to do. So yeah, and this thing was supposed to be 6 days. We eventually, so it's either you change the date or you change the duration. There are a couple of, but most of the time for good practice, you are only changing what days. You usually don't touch the dates. For good practice, you are changing this. They are altering these days, and you are updating all the percentage. So, if it's going to be 6 days, if it's now 8 days, you move to 8 days. If it's not 8 days, 9 days. That automatically will adjust your date, your finished date, and also sometimes it will depend on what you do here. It will also affect the percentage the percent completion. Okay, and because this might be calculated once the project begin to start, the percent completion will start reading based on on this. If you adjust anything significant, especially when you adjust the days, it's going to adjust the calculation of your percentage completion. But you cannot come back there and set the right percentage completion if you feel, okay, we are 70% completion. Sometimes this is it is subjective, because you will see what you are doing, and of course, this is where subjectivity comes in. You look at what you are doing, and you are talking to the guys, or you look at the work, and from what you are seeing on the ground, okay, 70% complete and you'll be able to, of course, not as really subjective, because you can see it yourself, physically see what you guys are doing, and based on that, be able to give the best estimate. Okay, we're 60% complete, and you put that there, submit to the client, and the client can say, okay, 2 days more, 60% complete. The remaining 40 days, I'll be able to finish in 2 days. Those are things that question that will come up, and you will answer. So basically, usually I most of the time when my activity is complete, when I'm just for the client to easily glance through certain things, I just highlight them as green. So client is not something. It depends on you and depends on your client. So quickly they can see, okay, glance through activities that are completed, basically, and of course you can also filter them out, and you see all the things that are complete. This is a very not too long anyway, but it's a project that's still going on right now. So basically, that's what you do, and like I said again, it's of course it's not especially for Primavera P6, it requires some learnings. On We call it progressing your schedule when you go for an interview. Those are the kind of language you use, you know, progressing schedule, especially for Primavera PC, because that's more robust, because some things, for the kind of thing that you have to do, uh, there are certain things that micro project cannot do. It's done with Primavera P6, um, especially because schedule for construction jobs, you know, the schedule is used to estimate. It's kind of also ties into what you can invoice the client. It's a very powerful That's why this scheduling job is an interesting one, because what you produce every week, you know, you have to, they use it to weigh, uh, what you can invoice them. There's a way it works out. It's not something that it's a bit not complicated, but it's not. It's something that is really interesting to do, really, because starting to you have to produce out of the primary P6, and the clients will use it to update their own spreadsheet. And at the end of the month, that's the invoice you're going to send to them. You have an expectation of it. On construction jobs, it's a very special, yeah, thing. All right. Um, Managing delays and slippage. When crypto actually slips, your job as a project manager is to present options, not just report problems. Like I said, you already know that when something affects a critical activity, automatically it's going to impact the deadline, uh, the end date. So it will automatically affect it. But that does not mean you can still not finish at the end day. So you need to start asking yourself, what can I do to now bring back the project to finish? Once an activity that's on a critical part is impacted, you need to now sit down. And when I say sit down, if a project you are knowledgeable about, you can quickly look at things. Uh, Even you're looking at your schedule, you can start asking questions. Whether can we move this particular activity, forward, or can it be done in parallel? You start asking questions. Basically, you'll be talking to your team, especially to the technical people. You let them know straight away. Your job is to communicate to the team, hey, based on the schedule, we are not going to finish. Is there anything we can do? And everybody sees the true picture, and they can come up with suggestions on how things can be fast tracked. People can work extra hours. And talking about extra hours, it's not a decision you just make like that. Okay, extra hours. If it's extra hours, what that means is that overtime rate is always different from the regular rates, right? We all know that. Some organizations, especially consulting environment that I work, uh, overtime rate is the same thing as regular rate. So you might not have a problem in that kind of environment to work overtime, because it's just the fact that, okay, it's an 8 hour day work, or maybe a 10-hour day work. So if the guy decides to work 14 hours because, oh, we are not going to meet deadline if we continue at that 8 days or 10 days. So decides to start working 14 hours or 16 hours a day. It still does not affect the cost, because you are still paying them at the same rate. For my own environment, consulting environment. But in a situation where I've worked, uh, when I was working in the construction field, and overtime rate are totally different. It's something 1.5. So does that significantly now affect the cost? So we want to, okay, you have to now look at the schedule. Okay, if you work overtime, we'll be able to finish at this particular date. Now, there's a cost implication for that, basically, because the there will be extra hours now that you have not accounted for before, that will now come into play, because you need to finish at that particular deadline. So you calculate that out, those number of hours out, the extra hours, overtime hours that people are going to work. That 0.5 element, you bring it out and see what the cost is, check it against your margin, and you have to make a decision. Uh, uh, if it is something that is your company has cost, basically you have no choice, you have to bite the cost. But if it's something that a client is asking for, okay, we know you guys are supposed to finish May 31st, but something came up urgently, we need to finish maybe May 5th. So but your response is, you don't respond, oh no, that to the client. You go back and now pick up your schedule, and see, okay, what can you do to finish May 5th? That's when you now start adding more resources to your schedule. You load up when a schedule that is loaded up with resources, uh, you begin to, okay, if I put 2 resources here, what's going to happen? An activity that's going to be 10 days is not going to be 5 days. Okay, you do that, and your schedule will automatically, it will level up, leveling. Something called resource leveling. It levels up, and your schedule might adjust to that mid 5th day, and you see that. So you now look at those over maybe additional resources. And again, if we work overtime, you can add the resources. You can add, so those are two things I've mentioned now: adding of resources or working overtime. You can do either or you can do both. It's not so if I add more resources, it's going to cost more money, right? If I do overtime, it's also going to cost more money because people are not going to be paying at the over what the overtime rate is different from the regular rate. So you bring all of those things out, the cost of the resources, the overtime rate, and calculate it. And that's what we are going to use to get back to the client. Yes, we are going to be finishing. Yes, we are able to finish May 5th. We're able to finish May 5th. But this is the implication of that. You now show them the extra cost. Of course, the client knows going to be going. There are going to be extra cost involved on that. So you are not just speaking with emotions or vaguely. You are showing them this is going to require more resources, 10 additional resources, and they're going to be working overtime. You have to show the calculations plainly to them, and you have to show the calculations. And this is what the cost is going to be for a project like that. Usually, the rates. The client knows the rate because those are the things you'll have submitted in your MSA. Your MSA is called Master Service Agreement. So for project, most of the time when you're working on project, there's something called the Master Service Agreement. So Master Service Agreement is the agreement your company has with that company. So usually the Master Service Agreement contains the times of why you're going to be working with the client. It's just a contract between you and the client. And usually those MSA are there. It could be for 5 years, it could be for 10 years. Even though there's no project, there's an agreement between my company and your company. So anytime we have work, we're going to do work for your company. This is the rate we are going to be charging your client. So they know the rate of everybody. So when you're they know the rate of the carpenter. Those are the things that we used to. But so when you're submitting overtime, we're going to work extra 10 hours. So they already, even without showing them, they will know that. But you have to show them 10 hours. The resources are going to work. So everybody is clear to everybody what that there's nothing hidden in that. The rate of every personnel is known to the client, and you work out the calculations and you show it to them. So these are things I do on most more than often more of the time. That's what you'll be doing also because it will come up. It will always come up. So you put that calculation and you show the client this is the cost. And once the client agrees, I'm going to show us there's another slide for change management that we're going to look at on that cost. And once this is agreed with the client agrees to the cost. And there's an email, not just a verbal. Yeah, usually sometimes there'll be a verbal communication. You can go ahead. Once if they give you a verbal communication, you send an email back, based on our discussion. We proceed with doing this work at this with these additional resources and at this additional cost. Thank you for the approval. You just send that email. That's so something is documented, and you can ask, or you can just ask at the end of the email, please, can you please let us know if we can proceed? And you wait for that response to come back. Yes, you can proceed. Then, even though nothing has been signed, an email is a contractual document. Email is contractual. Once something is exchanged through email, it is contractual. Nothing need to be signed. If once is what when project have commenced like that, you have the something to really, even though they've approved the what's it called, the formal change order has not been signed. Usually, it's a common knowledge in project management. You can start proceeding with work because the project manager who has authority have given you authority via email. That can proceed. There's a case study that I put together under the cost management, and you see the power of emails. Emails are very powerful. They are contractual. Even though nothing has been signed, it is as good as something has been signed when something has been communicated via email and it has been agreed via email. So you have to take note of that before you send an email. Please, I want to beg you. Email are contractual. They are legal. They are binding on you. So you have to be very, very careful what you send out in the emails. Very, very, very careful. You have to be very, very careful. In fact, even on Teams, if you are chatting your client on Teams or greetings on Teams, you have to be very, very, very. Usually, it will take a lot of things. Some certain communications, you take them off email and you take them to Teams. Because we want to get a very fast response and chat. I chat with my client a lot on Teams, and for fast communications. And usually you see that most of the cost controller guys, once you agree something, we are chatting, we are discussing, it's an easy way to talk and chat. And then we we move the final agreement, whatever we have discussed on Teams and agreed. I'll send it via email. So please be careful what you send via email, please. Yeah. All right. So managing delays. Now, how do you manage delays? Like I said, delays will come. So look at your schedule. Can I resequence work? But most of the time, discuss with the technical guys, especially for projects you are not technical guys, you know, and they will most of the time they will give you idea on how to go about it. Add resources, reduce scope, move non-essential feature to phase two. It's not in your power to reduce scope. You understand? But when delays comes, maybe from the most of the time from the client, you can suggest this reduction of scope to them. Okay, for us to get things going, maybe we can move certain things to phase two. The other time, bro, Linka was talking about, in his IT project, was talking about phase two. There are certain things you can move to phase two. So at the phase one, there's something called the minimum viable product. Minimum viable product can still be delivered. Something can still be delivered at phase one that, okay, we can get going. So for us to really get that minimum viable product, maybe we can just remove some of the items into phase two. The technical guys will advise, they will be the one to advise. Okay, let's move these things to phase two. So that way we can finish this phase one. So all of those judgment comes from them. And by minimum viable product, for those who are an IT guy, basically it's, uh, how I define that now, minimum viable, from that word, minimum viable product. For example, all of these iPhones, where you can see them, they keep producing them, different versions every year, 2026, 2027, and it's going to continue that for life, So basically, what the minimum viable product, when they produce the first iPhone or the first maybe Samsung S, whatever it is, the first version of it that comes out is what they call the minimum viable product. It's not as if when that phone comes out, you can use it. It's satisfying a particular, a need of client, and we can use it. So what happens the next year is that some additional features will now be added again. But the main point is that when it first came out, it is usable to the client, even though that what you are using at that particular moment does not have every feature that you need. But the one that first came out, you can start using it, and everybody's using it. So that's what, in the IT world, they call the minimum viable product. So the first thing that comes out can still be usable. We can build this house to such that, you can, even though the house is not complete, we can build it in such a way you can move in. You can move in on this particular date. It does not mean the house is complete. You guys can move in, your family can move in. Then while you are still inside the house, you can start be doing some other things. So the stage you build the house to such that your client can come and start living there, even though the house is not yet finished, is what you call your minimum viable product. So you can use that intent also. Okay, we can do it this way, take this out. So it's not as if you have technically this all the scope. What I'm saying is that, okay, we can build the house to this extent and you can move in, and the client moves in. So then you continue with your work again. So that's the phase one of the work done. So basically, that's the whole idea of what I'm trying to portray. So that's how you think as a project manager, or negotiate the date. I've discussed this. Negotiate the date. Never be afraid to negotiate the date, please. Never be afraid. That's what makes you. One of the skills of a project manager is negotiations. Negotiation skills. Negotiation skills, and I think one of the scenarios we try to play in under the scope management. That's one of the things I was trying to the exercise. That's what the exercise was. One of the things I want to pick out in the exercise, how you are able to discuss, and you have to be very bold, very, very bold. You have to be smart. You have to, what's that word now? That word escaped me. Anticipate what your client will say. That's one of the things, one of the core skill of negotiation. Anticipate what the other person will. If I say this, anticipate what the response is going to be. Based on that anticipation, produce an answer. And the whole also idea of negotiation is not for you to win and the other person lose. when you go into negotiation, you're going to have problem if you go with that mentality. It must be a win-win situation. Okay, I want to have this. You must also have something for the other party to win. So when you go without mentality, most of the time you come up with good outcome. So you must go down there with the mentality of a win-win. Win-win. I must win something. There must also be a win for the other party. So you go on with that mentality. And when you go with that mentality, that's why it's negotiation. I give something, you give something, and everybody comes out happy. That's what Not that you are the one that is happy and everything. So that's a bad negotiator. That's not even that's bullying, basically. All right. This example here. Let's apply everything we've covered to simplify Borealis project scenario. So what I have here basically is, we've looked at this idea management portal, in our scope stuff. We talked about this a lot. We have activities here. What I wanted us, uh, hmm, this is an activity I wanted us to do. Um, uh, okay. What I'm going to do, we're finishing 9:30. I'm going to send this to us. I want everybody to just do it on their own. Uh, uh, just try to uh, get the critical power. It's just a simple thing. Just pick up your pen and just run through this. Um, uh, it's just something. Just juggle your brain and just look at what the project total duration is. What is the critical part? So and just see how uh if there's a delay on one activity, how does it affect the other? It's just a very simple something. Based on what we did last week, if you still remember your backward pass and your forward pass, try to see if you can do that. Please pick your pen, jog your brain on this one. I will send it to us because it's almost 9:30, so there's no point wasting time on this. Please do that. Please do it and just send it to me. Whatever, whichever you want to do, just please. I'll send it. I'll give you the email to send it to. Please, I need everybody to do this. Pick a prayer. And the one I ask us to do something, please do it. I'm not marking anything. Just do it and submit to me because it helps you. When you do something, there's something it does to you. In terms of experience, in terms of your brain retaining certain things. I can tell you, you don't know where things plays out. You could pick out in an interview. It could be in a job, but all of these things actually helps you in your decision making when you begin to really work. So please, I'll send that to us. I don't want to also waste time. Please go back if you can. If you don't know this, go and watch the video of last week. I think I've sent the link out to us. It's on YouTube. Watched it for the backward and the forward pass and draw the critical part. Just draw your network diagram for these. And another thing is that if you think you need more, I can send maybe a more larger something that will take you more time to do. But why I'm not really so much want to do that because it's not something you do in practice. Like calculating using your hand, you don't do that in practice. But you must understand it because because it informs how you read and understand, whatever your software is given to you. Basically, for every software, if you don't know most of the time the theory or behind it, you will not understand the product. In fact, because computers are basically garbage in and garbage out, it's your understanding that helps you to garbage in. If you don't understand, you can't garbage in. It's only when you garbage in that can garbage out. It's as simple as that. But if you don't understand, you can't garbage in. And whatever you garbage in, of course, they say garbage out. So common mistakes new PMs make with schedules. Tax implement system cannot or tax too big and vague. Implement system cannot be estimated assigned to one person in your track. If you can answer done or done, it's too big. So you don't want to make your activity too big or too vague. Like we talked about this on our WBS. Break things down as simple as possible. Be able to assign an activity to somebody who is doing. There must be somebody responsible. For an activity. It could be 2, 3, or 4 people working on a particular activity, but must be able to assign activities and you must be able to judge when that activity is going to finish. there must be clear dependencies. Basically, for every activity you are doing, does it depend on another activity, or does another activity depend on it? So you must know what depends on it and what that activity also depend on, because our activity is in the air. There are certain things that depend on it, and there are also some, you also what depends on another activity. So you must know how where that lies. So you sequence your. That's why the sequencing of the activities is very, very, very important, because it's going to affect your duration. How you sequence your activity is going to affect your duration, and it's going to show how smart you are, or how smart your organization is. That's one of the things that schedule does, because the waterfall approach management will tell you, hey, this finish, this one start, this one finish, this one start. But really, things doesn't have to finish before another one starts. You understand? There are certain activities that can run parallel. There are certain activities that, okay, once this one gets to the middle, this one can start. Yes, even though technically we know that this one has to finish, but you know that there are certain things I can start doing. I can start preparation. I can start preparing. I don't want to wait, for certain things to happen before, this one finish. If somebody is pregnant, you already know at the end of the 9 months, this person is going to deliver. It's not on the day of delivery you start going to the market to start shop for clothes. Yeah, certain things you can start doing, before that time. We have done the scanning, and we know that, okay, we're expecting a baby boy. So there are certain things you start doing before what the delivery what you really, even though you don't know the what the sex, you know that the child is coming, you can go and buy a unisex, things like that. So you have to be very smart about the sequencing of your activities, because if you don't sequence properly, it's going to elong what your the timeline of your project. So clear dependency must be set, and of course, you work this out with the technical people. Um, Most of the time, the sequencing thing, you have to work with the technical people. Is a technical thing. It's a technical thing because, and again, it also depends on resource availability. Because all of this thing is, that's why schedule is so sweet. Yes, I know that, okay, this activity can actually run in parallel. But what that means is this: if you have two activities running in parallel, do you know what that means? If three people are working on this activity, once you begin to do parallel, what that means is that, and if those resource also can also do this, there's an activity A that requires 3 resources, and there's activity B that requires 5 resources. Now, activity three, those 3 resources in activity A can also work in activity B. So, and ideally, the two can run parallel. What that means is that if they are running in parallel, the 3 resources on A will no longer be available for what? For B. So what that means, if you want them to run in parallel, what that means is you have to get additional resources. So do you have the budget for that? If, for example, if it's a salaried organization, do you want to go and employ people just basically because you need them? And there are organizations that do that. May we not fall and find ourselves in that situation. As a project manager, I know these things. I see these things a lot, and organization, they will bring you in. For this, let's listen to what I'm describing right now. There's an activity A that's going to last for 10 months. Not so. Let me make it very realistic now. That is going to last for 10 months. There's another activity B that's going to last for maybe 1.5 years. Now, the resources on activity A can also do activity B. But because we want to run them in parallel so that our schedule can be shortened, we don't want this one to finish. Because, okay, if this is going to be 10 months and this one is going to be 1.5 years, and you now run them like finish to start. Like when this one finishes, then we can start that. Then what that means is that you are going to finish that project 10 months and 1.5 years. That means you're going to do that project for like what? For like 2 years and what? And about 4 months. And the client might not agree to that. They will tell you secretly, the client will tell you, no, you don't have to do this. They will tell you, they look at your schedule, no, why can't you just start this activity at the same time? Like this. This one does not have to finish before you start running that. So that's why I say you have to be very smart. So when you now build your schedule that way, okay, we can run them in parallel. So what that automatically reduce your schedule to 1.5 years, basically, instead of 2 years and 4 months. It reduces to 1 but the implication of that is this: the resource that are on activity A will no longer be available for what? Activity B. because since the activities are now running in what? In parallel. So what that means, most of the time, organization will now have to employ people, employ new people for activity what? Activity B. So what it means is this. It's not as, now that activity is going to last for one and a half year. It's not as if they're going to, what if best is that they will retain you for 1.5 years. And at the end of the 1.5 year, they will just come with an excuse or something happen and they will get you out of, they will sack you out of work. Something will happen. They will give you one story, and that's a lot of people get stuck at work. They already know from the beginning they need it for they will know. They won't, of course, they won't tell you. They already know from the beginning that we need it for 1 year. That's the best case scenario. In fact, worst case scenario, because they have maybe people who are in organization who have been working there for a very long time, who are on activity A. Immediately those people finish that activity A, after 10 months, do you know what happened? They will sack you after that 10 months and take those people to what? To go and continue where you stop on activity B. And this is how things plays out most of the times in organization. So, I'm just giving all of this scenario because these are practical scenario and this is happen. And this is how you'll be working as a project manager. These are decisions you'll be making as a project manager. Because the client will not tell you can't do this for 2.5 years. No, you can, and they will show you can do it for 1 year. They will show you. They are project manager. They know schedule. They will tell you this. Oh, this activity can start this. You don't have to wait for this to finish. I've worked on project website. My company, there's a project we lost some 2-3 months ago for this scenario that I just painted for you. The client wants something to finish at a particular date, and based on the schedule we have built and because of the resource we have, we said we're going to last for this particular period. And basically because of the resource we have, because we know that when this one finishes, we'll start. But the client knows that we can run certain things in parallel. We don't. They are activities that don't depend on each other. You can run them parallel. But once you don't have that resource, if we need to get additional resource, it's going to cost us more. That means we're going to bring new people in, and it's going to cost us more. Now, if we outsource it, okay, to other people, okay, we can get all outsource it. We look at the profit margin; it doesn't worth it. And we went back to the client and like, we can't do this, and they took it off away from us, and we're happy to lose it. You win some, you lose some. We could have brought in out outsource it or bring more people in, but at the end of the day, when those people finish that project, and it's not a project that is so long, maybe 1.5 years. So what happens after 1.5 years? Are we going to let these people go? And company can make decisions. The company feels that okay, maybe after 1.5 years we can get more projects, and these are kind of decisions they make. Sometimes when they bring you in, it's not as if they have projects for you that are going to last you for so long. But sometimes they bring you in, and if more project comes in, good, you still be retained. And this is most of the time when people get sacked at work. This is what happens most of the time. More than often, there's nothing that to keep you going, especially when people are on salaried. There's nothing that keeps you going, and that's why people are sacked. So I just need to share all of those fine details with us. Over optimism, don't be over optimistic. When I say assuming no rework, no delays, please, when an activity is going to be 3 days, always as buffer. There's something called buffer that you build into your schedule. Always build buffer into your schedule. Things can happen on your project. Something's going to be 100 days. Don't say it's 100 days. After building the viral project, try to put buffers. From experience, the cleaning guys will tell you from experience, okay, can we just ask extra 10 days, extra? I think I mentioned this last week. It's better to under promise and over deliver than to over promise and under deliver. It's better under promise and over deliver. Never over promise and under deliver. So please be smart about that. Please update your schedule. When reality changes, update your schedule. Please, it's very important. Sometimes you look as the schedule is going on, you just look at things, okay, things might change. Something that we have estimated 6 days for before, I think it might not be possible. Even though the activity is down the line, go and update it. Go and update it. And when you update it, sometimes you keep silent. Really not because you want to lie, you're hiding anything. Like I tell you, schedule is a communication tool. Even see that I'll change the days. Most of the time, it might not really affect the end date of the schedule. Most of the time, and those things like that, I don't really speak about it. And there's no really need to speak about it because the end date is still the same thing. But that particular activity, I've said 5 days, not 10 days. But at the end of the day, it still does not affect the end date. And the reason why we've gone over that. If that activity has a float, You don't need to talk about it. But once it affects the end date, you have to explain to the client. So please, you have to prepare why you can no longer finish at that particular day you originally promised. So that's why must be proactive. So treat it as a document, not a conversation. It is a document. It's a communication tool. So please, build your schedule. Marry it, know it like at the palm of your hand, please. Okay, before you finalize your project, uh, uh, just to round up, know your WBS, know your dependencies, your critical path, non-working time. One of the things we do under Microsoft project, when you do start learning, one of the things that, for the first part of your training, one of the things you work on is this calendar, how to build. You have to, because the way, unfortunately, the way Primavera pieces and Microsoft work is that, it doesn't work like an Excel, how intuitive like an Excel because of weight projects, because it's about practicality, of life, basically of how project works. So most of you have to build. One of the things first you sit down that takes your time in schedule is calendar. But once you set a calendar, depending on the kind of organization you work, you don't have to go through it over time. You can, if another project comes, you can go and pick up that calendar and use. You have to build your calendar. You have to sit down and build your calendar. That takes a bit of time, especially if the project is going to last for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. You have to sit down and build the calendar, and you name it, but you can use it for other projects. So if another project of that nature comes up, you don't need to sit down and start building another one. What you can just adjust. So there's something called the non-working time and working time in calendar in Microsoft Project and Primavera P6. It takes a bit of time to really set up your calendar because it's going to affect things. So you have to build calendars. Calendar could be built five working days and 2 off days, Saturday and Sunday off, 8 days work. It could be built 5 days calendar, 12 hours working day, 5 days, Saturday and Sunday. It could be built 7 days. It could be a continuous project like almost of those construction projects, 7 days, 12 hours work, or 7 days, 8 hours work. So you cannot use the same calendar for every project. You cannot use the same calendar for every. So it depends on depending on the kind of the way the project is, and there'll be holidays, there'll be time non-working time. So you have to go there and mark the days that are non-working days in your schedule so that it doesn't show up in your schedule. So it's something a big deal that. So like I said again, if you really want to learn that, please reach out. It's a job on its own. Scheduling job is a job, and I can tell you the jobs are out there for schedulers. It's a job, but and there are a lot of real life stuff that we practice that you done on that. Okay, please, when you build your schedule, please let your team review before you send to the client. The team has to review, and this is very important for us as project managers. Please, once that schedule is built, please, there must be total buy-in because you are not the one doing the work. If you are not part of the working people, like really on the field, the people who are working have to look at it and agree to it because you are going to hold them to it. Because at your weekly, one of the things you do weekly as project goes on, we call weekly update, weekly internal meeting, where you meet with your internal team and you are asking them how far the last, if for big projects, we meet on daily basis, very, very big project. If you are working for site project, basically. But for you're in the office, guys are on the field, you meet every week. That's what I do most of the time. We meet internally every week. As the project begins to produce very slow, we might change it to bi-weekly. So you are going to be asking them where they are with work, how they are progressing, are there issues. Um, and one of the things we're asking is that if are we still able to finish on a particular date? And if they say no, they have to give you reasons. And the reason why you'll be able to ask that because they've committed to it. They committed, we are going to spend 10 days. Now it's now 15 days. Why is it 15 days? They have to explain it. And once they give it out, you have to document it. If it's a client delay, if it's your delay, whatever the issue is, you document it. Those are things that are going to be used in your lesson learned at the end of the word, at the end of the project. So please let the team commit to it. So basically, that's what we have learned. So there's the cost management part is going to be very interesting because I can tell you there are a lot of templates that is going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So please, if I want to believe if you one of the things that you must brush up as a project manager is your Excel skill. Please, you must brush up your Excel skill, depending on the kind of organization you'll be working for. Either way, in fact, either way, you just have to just brush up your Excel, Excel, the use of your Excel, please. And thank God for AI right now. Makes a lot of make a lot of things intuitive. You can ask questions, so but you have to a lot of things you have to know. Uh, you know, when it comes to next year we're going to start with I have the cost manager. I thought we were going to get into that today, but uh, where's that? There are about 5 different slides we're going to be covering on that cost manager, and they are different. I have about 4 uh kind of scenarios we're going to be walking through, and because that's actually the most critical part of your job, most critical part, because it's all about as I say, it's all about the Benjamin. It's all about the money. So next week, let's prepare for that. Let's prepare for that. Does anybody have any question at this point in time? For those that joined us, we said we're going to finish 9:30 today because there's a program for 10 o'clock. There's a fantastic program that is coming by 10 o'clock in church. Please, I need everybody to please join. Please, I don't want to tell us. I'm sure we all know what the program is about. I think it's how to transit into, having your own business, basically. There's somebody who has a farm, who wants to come and share some experience and some learnings to us. So please, that's why we are stopping 9:30 today. So please, let's prepare for that. It's by 10 o'clock. Does anybody have any question? Please. Okay, please.
Yes, sir.
Elder, please go ahead.
Yes. My question is, does schedulers and project managers see resources from the same point of view? And secondly, what are the types of resources for a project manager?
Okay, so basically, your scheduler is taking information from you. Your scheduler is going to be taking information from the project manager in terms of resource, because you are the one telling the scheduler the resource that that are available. The scheduler can work out different scenarios for you. If basically we need to finish this project at a particular date, so the scheduler can work out, okay, for us to finish on this date, you need this. You can put this resource here, resource here. So it can advise you based on the schedule. You will load the schedule with resources and will advise you as a project manager. The scheduler doesn't make a decision. He's only working with the software and will advise you, okay, if you put 2 additional resources here, we'll get this, we'll achieve this finish date. So that's what the scheduler does. So in terms of how they see resources, they are working together basically, and it is you that, as a project manager, that make decisions on those resources, and you're also telling the scheduler resources that are available. If the scheduler tells you, oh, 3 resources will be needed to finish this particular deadline day, and as a project manager, you look at it, no, I can't afford to bring in 3 resources. We'll stick to what, 2 days. And the scheduler will try to see, okay, 2 days, 2 resources, what can we do? Can we move things around? And if technically, as far as the schedule can't work out, it will tell you, sir, it's with these 2 resources, we couldn't be able to meet that particular date. But with these 2 resources, we can still meet if we extend it. Is an iterative process. It's basically iterative. If you know what iteration means, you adjust things, increase, decrease, increase, add, move things forward, move things backward. As you are doing that, the schedule will be showing you, what the end date is. So you'll be seeing it because things are already linked. As you are moving things around, things will be changing. So that's what the scheduler basically does. So at the end of the day, it comes out with different scenarios and advise you and you will now make your decision as project manager. So they don't see different, they see it the same because you are working in unison. So in terms of when you say the types of resources, uh, you know, anyone that works on a project is a resource. You understand? They are human resource. So let's even classify that, and there could be different kind of human resource, depending on, and that's why we talk about the stakeholders on your project. So and depending on the need of your project, there will be different need of human resource that is needed on what on your project. Now there are material resources, depending on the kind of project that you. So we have the human resource, we have the what called the material resources. There's what we call LEM. So that's what we call LEM in project. LEM means that's capital LEM, labor, equipment, and material. Those are your resource. Labor, equipment, and materials. So those are the resources that you use on the project: labor, equipment, and what? And and materials. So basically, those are the resources. Every resource you have on the project are categorized under those three: labor, equipment, and what? And materials. So those are the classification of resources in project. And in our cost management, there is a template I'm going to show. I'm going to walk us through an example. Um, I'm trying to see how those remaining 2 days going to last, but I'll try as much as possible to choke everything into those 2 days. I will show us a template that I use, something that I built, and we'll see the labor, equipment, material, how kind of build, how we budget for things, because that's very important. It's a skill that you must learn how to budget. And when you're budgeting, there are certain, even though you're not technical, there are certain things that must be in your head. Not every project manager should have. Based on that, you start asking questions, because you must come with some level of knowledge, even though you are not a technical person. For example, I was talking uh, to some two project managers, and they have a project, but they brought me in to come and assist them with their cost tracking on that project, just to build something for them. And part of my discussion to them was that I had to let them view factor in. It's a lump sum project. So immediately I told them, okay, have you considered, because they are going to be using helicopters to move in the forest to do certain things. And one of the things I quickly brought them now, they talked about their fuel surcharge. Fuel surcharge. And what I mean by fuel surcharge is basically like in project, fuel. If I'm going to be using a helicopter, using my truck to work on the project, one of the things you factor in, and you will know, is that that truck is going to use fuel, right? It's going to use fuel. Now, imagine the way cost of fuel has gone over 100%, and you are going to be using equipment, maybe tractors are going to be consuming fuel. Automatically, it's going to affect your project, especially for lump sum project. It's going to affect it very big time, big time. And it's a conversation that you have to, every project is actually entering into. And I have to now tell them, build that into the what I was doing yesterday, and advise them. Even though it was a lump sum project, unit pricing project, and you have to go back to the client to start discussing the price of fuel, because everybody in the world around now knows that, of course, it's not anybody's fault. And even though it's a lump sum project, that's another thing. Maybe it's a good think about it. I want everybody to think about that. What I've just narrated right now. Okay, have I answered your question, sir? Before I finish this, my last statement, and we can finish. Have I answered your question, sir?
Yes, I answered correctly.
All right. So, um, now let's look at what is happening in the world right now. Please, I'm going to end in 5 minutes. Let's what happening in the world right now. You have a lump sum project. You have agreed with the client. Oh, this project is going to be $10 million, and Donald Trump did what he needed to do, and and the cost of fuel on that project maybe is about $2 million when you estimated your job, right? And when most of like when you do the estimate for fuel, usually most of the time there's always an adjustment that we normally put at it. Maybe from experience they will tell you, client or company will tell you most of the time, maybe we estimate we're going to use 5,000 liters of fuel, for example, and at the cost of maybe $1.20, and they will put some additional buffers into it. First of all, they instead of saying 5,000 liters, they will increase to 6,000 liters, and instead of saying 1.2 cent, they will increase it to what? 1.3 what? 1.3 cents. So they've adjusted it on two fronts. They increased the volume, they also increased the price, and that's what they're going to use for your costing to the client. Now, at the end of the day, I'm going to use 4,005 or 5,000, but you've building some contingencies into that costing. But now with what Trump has done, no matter the kind of contingencies nobody built the kind of what Trump has done, you don't build that contingencies into your project. It never worked. 100% increase. You can't build 100% contingency into your project. Nobody does that. It's usually between 10% and 20%. So with what Trump has done, so what do you think is going to happen to your project? Fuel is going to be it's supposed to be $2 million now. Automatically, it has now jumped to $4 million or $5 million. let's even assume your profit is already $2 million. That's already eating up your profits. So what are you going to do as a project manager? That's a question to ask. I'll leave everybody's going to think about that. What are you going to do with what Trump has done? What will you do? You have signed the contract. You've agreed. It's a lump sum project. Contract has been signed. Now Trump came and it's not just fuel. Some other things that have been affected, right? What do you do? So I'll give those as an assignment. It's not just fuel. Some other things are affected. So please, I'll leave as an assignment. So next week, please, I want everybody to come back with an answer. So 2 things assignment I'm giving to us. This scenario that I've pasted with what Trump has done, you've budgeted your project to a particular amount, and because of what Trump has done, something that you thought was going to cost you $5 million is now cost you about $15 million. What do you do as a project manager? And I'm going to send us these WBS, that stuff I sent to us at that time. Just to juggle something, just drop the network down, come up with the critical part, the project duration, and check how delay on an activity affects the whole project. So please, 2 assignments there. Does anybody have any questions? So we can just stop here, please. I'll stop recording.